it was a bit of a misnomer to say that this was a joint meeting. The intent was just to bring everybody up to speed. The budget and finance committee has a subgroup called the working group, and we tasked ourselves with trying to kind of work on some longer term goals in terms of budgeting. In particular, the capital program went around for a year or two. And what we did over the last 6-8 months was we talked to the different departments and tried to determine what their long-term needs were. Hopefully you can see the shared screen here. I'm gonna try to make it a little,
That's better.
Yeah. So I sent this to everybody as well. This is Carl Sender's latest version. It's a bit out of date in that it still has a column for 2021, which is essentially, we'll go through the details in a minute. Just to finish my little epistle there. So we've been working on trying to present, some facts and figures that we can give to the town council. The idea would be that the budget and finance guys would see it first, but they've all seen this sheet. And then the working group's intent was to present it to the town council such that in January, we could make some kind of a formal commitment on the part of the town council to proceed with, further analysis and coming up with some more detailed numbers. As Mike's want to say, generally speaking, none of this gets, if we all decide that this is a tenable program, we're going to move forward, that's all the standard procurement procedures have to be followed. So this doesn't release everybody to start spending money. Essentially, it just puts us all on the same page for the capital program. Is that fair to say, Mike? Maybe you could jump in there.
No, that's absolutely the case. And, this is a plan, and it's conception of what our capital needs are over a 5-year period. And again, as John mentioned, we need to reconcile 2021 to see what was spent in 2021 so that we can begin to incorporate that in 2022 and then create a 2026 column. So we truly are a 5-year, we're looking out 5 years. And again, every individual purchase when it occurs would still need to go to the town council for approval. And these numbers that you see on the page are really estimates of what we think the costs are. But we've got to get down, when we get down to actual equipment or improvements, then there'll be more detail provided as we fine tune those numbers. So this is the first time I think we've done this in the town. And I think it was a really good exercise. And the one wild card in here, I'm stealing your thunder right now, John. I don't want to get in too far because I know you're going to probably explain where the funding's coming from. Are you going to talk about that?
I think we should, just in general. Yeah, if you want to take it and run with it, go ahead.
All right. So the wild card on this page from our last discussions is the addition of CCMG road paving. When we originally were looking at this, that was not included in this particular plan. And prior to it being included in that plan, basically all of our funding needs would come out of our various reserves, and we wouldn't have to finance any of it through a GO bond. The inclusion now of the CCMG road paving changes that scenario because now there's going to have to be some leveraging for the town, and we'll have to decide how we're going to manage that process. But prior to that being included, our current reserves in various accounts would have been satisfactory to pay for the numbers that you see on this page. Again, I think they're arbitrarily a little bit high and conservative, but that's just a background in terms of how we're going to debt service this. And that's all I had, John.
Yeah, I think that's a good description. So if you're staring at this and wondering what's what, essentially what we did up at the top are the various assorted expenditure categories by department. And again, as Mike said, these are, it's an arrow shoot, so to speak. We've had some discussions with each department head, and as Joe can attest, we did that as well with the community center. Some of these are, wish list kinds of things. Some of the notes, if I'm going to scroll down here just to make life a little easier for everybody, some of the notes down at the bottom will give you an idea of the kind of big ticket things that are involved. So for instance, on the street, they have the mower. They want to get a new mower. The one's kind of in rough shape. And then the hydro excavator is going to be financed with the stormwater fund, but that's a big ticket item. We actually just got a quote in for about 110. It's a little less than that because the guy had sales tax in it. But that's one of those things that we can tighten up the numbers as they go. But if you look at the notes, again, the fire, we've been talking about this for a few years, the station truck rescue vehicle. We did get some good news, and I think that's reflected up above. The SCBAs will be financed, or not financed, they'll be paid for by a federal grant. So we've actually made some good progress on that. Community Center's got a cooling tower issue that Joe could speak to later if we want to get into detail, and then some HVAC upgrades. Infotech, Mark's been riding herd over this. There's a server replacement scheduled for 2025. The water tower maintenance had some issues, and also what we did was we plugged in for the Lakeshore Sewer Project. The water department the goal is to replace some services that are need to be replaced as that project progresses. So that's also in their numbers up above. This note A down here is essentially between Carl and Bill. If we did do what we show for 2022, the budget's already in Gateway for 2022. So if we chose to go the route that this shows and spend all of those dollars, we'd have to make an additional appropriation, which is just an appropriation hearing. So that gives you an idea about some of the detail that went into this in terms of some of the department expenditures. What Mike was speaking about, if you look at this bottom end now that's at the top of your screen, essentially, what we're financing this with is balances that are currently in the funds, and then as time progresses, revenues that come into those funds. So that's what you'll see here, CCD fund at the beginning of the year. This shows at 7/31 balance of 484. There will be some money coming out of that if you look at the way this thing balances out. And then the following year, it shows the balance moving forward. So as you can see, if you follow that particular one, line 27, CCD fund balance, you're starting off with 484. Because of expenditures, you're down to 317. The following year, if we do everything we want to do in 2023, you're down at 78. And then by virtue of getting the income of the 2024 year, you're back up to 200 and something. So again, this is a plan, and it will be adjusted as expenditures are made, and we may find out we don't need to spend quite as much. I agree with Mike, it's somewhat of a conservative plan looking forward. Same thing with the seeded fund. If you look at line 34, we're going to use some of that balance, and it's going to accumulate some in that third year, actually the second year now, if we're looking at it the way we are now. He's shown some annual revenues for that fund as well, and then he's showing the expenditures coming out. If you look at the bottom, which is kind of, I think it's an important thing to stress tonight, we're not going to try to bankrupt these funds. If we spent everything we're talking about spending, you can see that there's still fund balance at the end of every year, with the exception of column G, column G, where it looks like it's going to go negative, but that in terms of the CCD fund, but that can be corrected. We can time these expenditures such that we don't wind up in that kind of shape. But the nice part about
That's true.
Is that mine too, or is that just John, or?
Mike mentioned, I'm trying to find CCMG. If you look at column C for 2022, you'll see where line, let me see if I can highlight this a bit. I don't know if this thing will let me, I don't think it will. Yeah, there you go. So the CCMG road paving amount for 2022 is the sum total of the engineering costs and the 25% contribution of the town. That's a considerably more conservative number than you might think. We think the engineering, which was originally pegged at about, I think, 60 or 70,000, is probably going to come in closer to 45. So that'll come down some. And then in future years,
you froze when you were talking about the negative seeded fund. Can you go back and maybe repeat? I'm not sure what we missed. I want to be sure we aren't missing stuff.
Okay, sorry.
No, it's not your fault.
The balances, if you look at line 32 and line 39, those show the adjusted balances each year of those funds. So those are our two big potential sources of funding for capital projects. Line 32 is the CCD fund, Cumulative Capital Development Fund. As you all remember, we brought that back up to 5% this year. It sometimes, for some reason, in the state's infinite wisdom, it starts losing a little bit of the 5% every year. So you have to make a resolution to increase it or balance it back up to 5. So that's been done for this year coming up. And then what you're seeing there is the balance of the fund at the end of the year. And what I was trying to say there, Bob, is in column G on that 32 line, we're showing a negative balance, but that's partly because the expenditures in that given year are shown to be that significant. They may not, then they don't have to be. We can adjust those.
Yep.
But essentially, if you look at line 39 in the same way, these funds will not need to go negative based on what we know now without external financing. Now, to Mike's point, I wanted to scroll up. The reason I showed this column C, line 11, that's 2022's commitment for the CCMG. I don't know if you heard all that or not, but so we did plug that in here so that we didn't, misrepresent the expenditures. But if you look at line 21, for instance, we pulled back out then the cost or the planned cost for the hydro excavator trailer, because that's actually financed separately from all of the funds that you see on this page. That's coming out of the stormwater fee. And then he pulled out in line 22, that's the grant for the SCBA's that was originally going to be paid for by the town. We got the federal grant, so that helps us quite a bit. And again, we hope to have more. Anecdotally, I'll tell you, I've met with a company that Mr. Risby suggested to us. They're going to make a formal presentation to us, hopefully in January. They're a grant writing company that we may enlist for, if we so choose, we may enlist them to help us get grants down the road for even things as significant as the sewer project through the town and some of those things. So that's a rough, maybe I'm getting into too much of the weeds right now, but I wanted to give you, the rest of the council members, just a little flavor for what we've done to get where we are and the fact that we think we're going to be pretty much capable. Now, this does assume that we make use of some of the funds that are in the water department's accounts and our own accounts. So for instance, where is that water? Okay.
Funded from water funds.
There we are. Line 19. That's a pretty significant nut in 2023. If you look at line 19 in column E, that's a $500,000 a year. That presumes that we're going to do some of the things on their wish list. In addition, it includes that, basically that 500 is the Lakeshore Drive project. Now, it may not come in that expensive, and we will know with some certainty, because that is going to be part of the bid coming up in January on the Lakeshore Drive sewer project. We'll have a pretty good idea of exactly what that will wind up costing us, because that's going to be done by the contracting firm. Although it's paid for by the water department, it will be, or by the town through the water, it will be part of that project. So I know I didn't expect to get down in the weeds, maybe even this much. But again, Mike and my thought was you guys could at least get a flavor of it. And then maybe when we get, more specific numbers and better annotated detail in terms of each year looking out to 2026, you'll have a flavor of it, you'll better understand it, and then you'll be able to ask some questions, and we can maybe step off in January with a positive program in place and a good idea where we're going. Some of the fire department expenditures, which as you know are near and dear to my heart, if we do decide, okay, this plan makes sense, we think we want to do.
Breaking up.
Froze again. Damn.
And or purchase a truck sometime looking forward.
John, you froze just when you were talking about fire, just when you started talking about fire department. So why don't you start
I'm
there?
sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, so again, as Mike says, none of this gets spent until the council gets a chance to give their imprimatur. But something like the fire department, once the town does commit to a capital program of this magnitude and of this ilk, go out and get some design build contractor pricing in and truck pricing in, just like Tom will do with his plows and some of the other things that he needs.
Can I ask a question, John?
Sure.
A little bit to what we started earlier with the red. Does anybody have any anticipation if we do have issues and obviously there would be a decrease in revenue? Does anybody have a feel? Have we thought about anything where with the red being there that substantially we'd lose revenue or just minuscule? Does anybody thought about that?
We've talked about that at great length. In fact, Carl adjusted our projections on revenues early in this year based on, in fact, Bill initiated that last year when the COVID first came out. You know, we
keep breaking on us.
chiseling back our revenue boat fund. Sorry. The riverboat funds were down significantly because their activity was down during the COVID year. They're back up this year some. At the end of this fiscal, the end of December, we'll know exactly what we wound up either up or down. So we actually anticipated a pretty significant impact, and what we found was we can't even use our ARP money for some of the things we thought because we did better than we thought we did when we projected our budget for 2021. So it's hard to know, Joe, what the impacts will be. We'll try to be intelligent about it.
But one of the things I will do, I just printed a cash position, and normally what I do is I provide you with a cash position at the end of a month. So when we do the December meeting, you're looking at the position at the end of November. But I just paid the milestone bill. It came in, it was approved, all punch lists were there. And so I paid that. So basically the way we do that is we drain the CCMG fund because that money, is provided, but it's meant to go for paving only. So we did that, and then we had to pay the balance out of CCD. So what I'll do is I'll provide you with the end of at the end of November, but I'll also provide you with as soon as we can, because I was kind of stunned. We're going to close the year in the Senate fund at just a little over $100,000, and we pay for everything out of that. We pay for legal expenses that overstress the general fund and things like that. We've had to do that, and some of the Haas money that we have to pay for CCMG is down there. So we're about $267,000 in CCD, and we will be collecting at least $105,000 in that one. So that will be back up to close to 400,000, or at least high threes. So, but yeah, it's the individual things always nip at us and everything. And but we're doing a lot of things that we weren't doing before. I mean, we were sitting on that money because of the tax situation back in the 2012, 2013 period. And so we're now stressed, we've got a lot of things going on, and that's good. But I'll give you all of that information, because I know we're talking really about global, and so I'm talking about a little more specific what we're going to close the year at. But it seems to me that we're going to have to do some outside funding. There are just too many things that come up during the year. Trees fall down, and $10,000-$12,000 bills come dropping in for things like that, and I don't anticipate that's going to stop. So, but I mean, I think we've got to work together with Carl and and with the council to try to spend a budget and finance committee to figure out the best way to get all these things done.
It's on my
Any
agenda,
other-
Mike. I don't know.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, Jim.
No, I was just going to say, I don't really have anything else that I planned on talking about tonight.
Okay,
So
so
I think the goal was to tackle this thing pretty globally.
Yep.
And again, the analysis has not been completed. And as I mentioned earlier, we need to reconcile 2021 anyway, and then incorporate that into 2022 and out to 2026.
Yep.
So this is not a finished product yet. And again, part of that procurement process that you talked about earlier, John, where we're at any given time, back to Bill's comments, things that surprise us during the course of the year are going to enter into the decisions that we make going forward about items that are behind this analysis. So nobody should walk out of this meeting thinking, oh my God, we're going to spend that. This is a plan to show us what our capital needs are. And that was really the intellectual property to do this. And from there, it becomes, the hard work is trying to figure out then how do we pay for each one of these items and what is the reality comparison to this plan. And that'll roll out as we go forward. That's all I would really add, John.
So if anybody has any questions, otherwise, I think, Bob, you had another one or two things you wanted to talk about.
if we're done with the capital plan, I'd like to make a motion to the town council that we reinstitute the mask mandate at the community center. Does anybody want to second that?
So if I'm understanding, so what we're saying is like the YMCA and all those guys would have to be masked as well?
Yep. Yeah, especially the Y. I mean, those people are huffing and puffing in there.
I know it's not going to be a popular one.
No, that's why we make the big bucks, guys.
This is Deanna. I also noticed that Sue Vissing is going to be having some big half-off sale tomorrow.
That's going to have to be masked also if this is what we do tonight.
I think that's 2 to 5.
I'm sorry, what?
I think that's
2 to
from
5.
2 until 5.
Oh, good. We have time to let her know. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, discussion.
If things are going the wrong way.
Yep. We need to do a roll call vote. John?
Bob?
Yes, Joe.
Even though I'm not on the thing, can I say something or not?
Sure. Yep, go ahead.
Like I said, and I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I've been saying it forever, and I know Bill gets mad at me. But, us mandating masks and on Saturday having a party in the gym with 50 people, it seems like there's a contradiction there, but I just want to bring that out.
Now, the party will be masked, so will the sale if we do this tonight, and I think that's the way to go. So roll call vote, John Wall,
Favor.
John Coker,
Aye.
Mike Johnstone,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. So Joe, if you could, do you have a number for the Mulcahy's?
I don't have that number.
Okay,
Yeah,
I will
but-
call them. I can call her. Is that all right?
Yep.
Unless, Bill, you want to.
That's fine. I'll talk to her. I think they were all set to wear masks. And
I had spoke to them about that. We just probably ought to reinforce that. And then,
fine.
Joe, can you talk to the gal who does the girlfriend sale?
Yeah, I can text Sue Bissing.
And can you, Joe, take care of posting signs? And talk to the Y and all those folks, too. Because we probably need to talk to every renter, right?
Right.
So, Joe, can you do that? Bill, you want to do that? How we want to get that done?
I can do that. I think
Okay.
I've got everybody's number. So
Okay, and then, Joe, can you take care of the signs?
Well, that was the signs that I think the Y still has those because they put them up.
Did we have some on the doors to the building, too?
Yeah, that was from the Y. The Y created those.
Okay, so they'll take care of that. Okay,
Yeah.
sounds good. That's all I've got.
all right.
Okay, move we adjourn.
I'll second that. All in favor, say aye.
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 All right.
Night, everybody.
Right.
Aye.
Bye, everybody.
Yeah.